Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Jess, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Chris Mueller in a matter of moments over to 93.7 The Fan Cam, and we're talking about the Steelers and the battle in Buccos. Drop one in St. Louis tonight. Bailey Falter did not pick up where Paul Skeens left off. But I want to get back to this Joey Chestnut. I can't even eat one hot dog, let alone like 90 that he eats, and I can't even eat one full Primanti Brothers sandwiches. I would be no good in this contest. And what would be your over-under for Joey Chestnut and Primanti Brothers sandwiches?
Hold on, Richie. You're burying, you semi-buried the lead. You can't just sit and eat one hot dog?
No, I'm not a hot dog guy. I do not like hot dogs. Like, you don't like pizza? I don't like hot dogs.
Okay.
I'll eat a hot dog with chili on it. I'm just not a hot dog guy. I mean, I can eat one. I can force one down if I have to, but I'm not a big fan.
Fair enough. I thought you meant like you literally did not have the stomach capacity, and then I was going to start scratching my head. How many could Chestnut put down in the 10-minute time limit?
Can he eat 10?
It's
a lot of bread.
Wait a minute, Joey Chestnut?
Yeah, I'm asking. I don't know. I mean,
he eats like
the
70
record?
of them in 10 minutes.
70 Primanti Brothers sandwiches.
Primanti. I'm thinking hot dogs. Primanti sandwiches.
Yeah.
He could probably eat 25 in 10 minutes.
25 in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Ooh.
if I had to guess. Like, the bread would be a problem, but, like, the real problem with him is...
Oh, the fries, too?
Well, the problem for him is, does he have, like, an efficient way to actually get the food down? Because with the hot dogs, it's disgusting. I love eating a nice hot dog at the turn, for example, but watching the Nathan's hot dog eating contest makes me not want to have one because it's so gross. If Chestnut can, like, soak the sandwich in water and do whatever the heck he does with it, yeah, he could probably eat 25 in 10 minutes.
I would set the over and under at 10.5, and I would take the under. 10 Primanti Brothers sandwiches in 10 minutes.
I would not feel good taking the under on any Joey Chestnut eating challenge.
All right. Speaking of unders, I don't know if I like the under on the Pirates this year. I'm kind of starting to get a good feeling, a good vibe with this team, even though they lost. I know there's 3 spots for 10 teams. But if they could somehow keep what they're doing, stay in the conversation, sneak into one of those wild cards, I like the 3 guys that they have that they would send out there on the mound.
I like the top 3 in their rotation. I said this on Twitter, I'll say it here, a frustrating thing for me as I watch the advent of, 6 playoff teams now in each league, all these wild cards and everything else, Richie. Is you've got like this downstream effect of teams like the Pirates and others who just convince themselves that they are in it for a while. Like they just kind of say, oh, we can hang in there. We're going to hang in there. We're going to hang in there. We're not going to have to do anything either because it's such a diluted product as far as the teams that are in the chase. We don't have to be anything other than a team that hovers at 500. Teams aren't going to make bold moves. I say that as a preemptive strike because I know what people want to say is, if they just made a move for a bat or 2 or maybe waited around on a middle reliever, they'd really be stacked. Maybe. Suddenly, if they did those things, I think that they would become a much more formidable force. But because of the way that the wild card system is set up, I think that they're just going to try to stay the course here and hope that their pitching is good enough all year that it keeps them in the race. And I do think that's kind of a frustrating thing to consider when we look at the top 3 that they can trot out there.
Yeah, I think their pitching can keep them in the race. Their offense has been a problem. The bullpen has been a problem too, but the offense, when a team scores 4 runs, you would think that you could have an offense that could squeak out 4 runs, at least be in the conversation there. But I think this offense is an issue, and I would think addressing the offense is more important than maybe adding a middle reliever if this team's going to compete. But I don't know. You can't just go out and get bats.
Yes, you can. You can if you want to.
Well, you got to pay for it.
Well, that's goes back to what I just said. Teams like the Pirates, instead of aggressively trying to get better, just convince themselves because if you go look at the wild card standings and you look at the teams and the records that are actually competing and jockeying for these spots, teams can just tell themselves we don't have to do anything. And in the Pirates' case, they could say, well, maybe Rowdy Tellez will continue his torrid June. Or maybe Henry Davis, who hit a home run tonight, is going to finally get it going like he had it in AAA when they sent him down. And I think it's easy to sort of tell yourself those lies or those half-truths compared to making aggressive moves that involve giving up not draft capital, but prospect capital for rental bats. And I just think that teams are almost disincentivized to do that. Plus, Richie, one other thing here. When you have in both leagues, I think a combined maybe 4 or 5 teams that you could call truly out of the playoff race at this point, and that's all there are, is about 4 or 5 teams, then you limit the pool of effective sellers, because who's going to want to sell if they're within 2 games of a playoff spot, right?
Yeah.
So if there's maybe 5 teams selling players actively and aggressively, and a limited number of teams interested in those players, it kind of creates a mess, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think the Pirates aren't going to be sellers, but I don't know if they're going to be buyers. They're going to be kind of in the middle like they normally are, and everyone's going to be disappointed. I hope they can make a run and stay in the conversation, though. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers and minicamp. One more day left before they get a little break. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our GMC tweet of the night from Jason Mackey, who also appears on the show every once in a while. Would really be a huge for the Pirates if this was the arrival of Henry Davis. We saw in spring training the guy who was mashing at AAA Indy. Gets his first home run of the year. I do think that's encouraging, Chris, but he's only batting .157. I still feel like he looks lost out there at times.
Well, I'll go back to a couple different things based on that tweet, Richie. One is, I just said it, and Jason's tweet sort of confirmed it. Not that Jason speaks for the team. He doesn't. He obviously covers them now as a columnist, at least some of the time. But what he said there is probably what Ben Cherington and Bob Nutting and everybody else are thinking. Boy, we hope this guy can just hit with some power and be like a deadline acquisition style bat based on what he was earlier in the season, which was putrid. But I still have misgivings. It's nice that he hit that home run. They're down 4-1. At least kind of injects maybe a little bit of doubt into the proceedings. But earlier in the game, now this didn't come back to haunt them, but earlier in the game, it did, I'm sorry. He's got a guy at third base. He's got Taylor at third base after Taylor's knocked in Gonzalez after one unproductive at bat by Olivares. Taylor steals second. Taylor takes third on the bad throw. You've got less than 2 outs, and Henry Davis is up. You're down 3-1. A professional at bat there is hit the ball to the right side of the field, either on the ground or deep enough in the air that it gets the runner home, right?
Yeah.
Instead, Henry Davis launches one foul on the very first pitch, narrowly missing a home run. Then he misses badly, or he bounces foul and he's trying to pull, and you can tell he's trying to pull. And then he gets struck out on a breaking ball he has no chance to hit because, once again, he's just flying open, trying to yank the ball to left field. That's a bad at-bat, and it's the kind of bad habit that was killing him early in the season. So I have no real optimism that Henry Davis is going to suddenly figure it out and be that guy that Jason talks about him being in that tweet.
Yeah, great observation. Let's go out to Tank and Beaver. How you doing, Tank?
I'm doing good. Hey, O'Neal Cruz is like the unicorn. Why doesn't he steal more bases?
Well, you got to get on base, too. I mean, that's part of the issue. I mean, he's great against righties, awful against lefties. I just think that you don't know what you're going to get. There is stardom there somewhere, right? Like, I would call him a unicorn because you don't know what kind of player he is right now, right? Is he a star or is he a Gregory Polanco?
He shows me more signs, small signs, that he's not going to be Polanco, that he's going to be much better than that. I think he's got a little bit more basic dexterity and movement skills than Polanco, who just always reminded me of Bambi on ice, a guy that never really understood how to control his body and whose career functionally ended because of a horrible slide. We've seen some bad slides from Cruz, but to the actual point about stealing bases, I would imagine in part I'm not saying it's baseball instincts, but knowing a time and a place. Taylor got a great jump on the base he stole today, and then he was at third base shortly thereafter because of a bad throw. I just wonder if O'Neal Cruz has like the true base running instincts. You can say that a guy's really fast. That doesn't automatically, unless he's Billy Hamilton, make him a great base stealer. You have to have instincts. You have to pick up on tells. You have to know time and place. And I think it's fair to say he's probably a little bit behind in some of those areas.
Yeah, and he looks like he's the type of guy that he doesn't get a fast start. to second base or third base.
You're the track star.
Yeah.
You tell me, Richie.
I mean,
what does he have?
I haven't paid attention, but he doesn't look quick. I know he's fast, but I don't know how quick he is. You need to be quick to steal bases. Maybe I just don't know if he's a base stealer. I want him to be a star, though. The Pirates need stars right now. They need guys that can hit the ball, and they only have a couple of them right now. Nick Gonzalez being one of them, but Jack Sawinski strikes out too much. I guess Tellez is having a bounce back month, right? But you can't really count on him. He could revert back to what he did before. We saw Henry Davis. He's batting 157. You got a bunch of average or below average guys in your lineup, and I don't know if that's sustainable.
It's not sustainable, even with their pitching. They're lucky Nick Gonzalez has come up and hit. They're lucky that Andrew McCutchen has been surprisingly good for the majority of the season. It would certainly help if O'Neal Cruz started playing like Ellie De La Cruz, who steals a ton of bases, hits for power, is several years younger than O'Neal Cruz. I'm not, that last
and
part
has the
kind of
arm that O'Neal Cruz has, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's my frustration when I say that he's so many years younger and he's already ahead of the game compared to Cruz, but that's neither here nor there. They need O'Neal Cruz to harness these gifts because they need somebody in the middle of that lineup that profiles the way you just described, like a star. Nick Gonzalez almost feels like he's doing it on his own here, a little bit with Brian Reynolds. They need at least one more big bat.
I'm not giving up on O'Neal Cruz just yet. I mean, he is basically a rookie. He missed all last year, so this is kind of his first year of getting really acclimated to an entire season. Let's switch gears a little bit and go out to Kirk and Manor. How you doing, Kirk?
How you doing, Richie? Hi, Chris.
Good, thanks for calling.
Hey, set me straight if I'm wrong. I mean, we lost consecutive home games to 2-10 teams last year, and Mike Tomlin gets rewarded with a new contract. Am I seeing things wrong, or?
Kirk, I understand, and I know there's a lot of frustration. I think the national perspective is a lot higher on Mike Tomlin than the local one. But the guy, you can't argue his wins and losses and his success since 2007. I think the non-losing season is meaningless. I don't like that, but he always has teams and games. You can look at the postseason. I know we always point that out. But look at the roster he's had the couple years, and look at the quarterback
He helps make the
had.
roster. He helps make the roster. He'd help if he thought Kenny Pickett was a bum, they wouldn't have drafted him. He had a hand in that. He has influence in that. What are we talking about here? They're 0-5 in their last 5 playoff games. They've been largely non-competitive, in those games. They've been outscored something like 66-0. I think the guy's a pretty good coach, all things considered, like total body of work here. He won a Super Bowl and then went to another and could have won that one. But let's not pretend like the last almost 8 or 10 years for Mike Tomlin haven't been riddled with disappointments. But I digress here because you know what we always do when Mike gets a contract extension? We relitigate Mike Tomlin, the coach, and everybody's so dug in, it feels like it's World War I here. Nobody's going to move anybody off their position. So instead, I think it's much more worthwhile to have a conversation, Richie, about what this contract extension says about Art Rooney II. He's the one who has to give the extension. Reportedly, it's a lot more money. It's 3 years, we know that much. So it's usually 2 maybe if it's kind of standard operating procedure. The owner is telegraphing that he values Mike Tomlin being his head coach more than the results Mike Tomlin gets, that Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere, that they feel lucky to have him, and that more than anything else, you give a guy this contract extension, you are making it abundantly clear, regardless of what your fans think, that you are happy with the direction of the franchise under his stewardship. And I think that all says a lot more about Art Rooney and where his head's at as the owner of this franchise and this football team than it does anything else.
Do you think the grass is greener on the other side, though? Like, do you think if you wouldn't have extended him and you would have brought someone else in here and then started at square one again, they already have some pieces in place. The players like to play for him. He can bring free agents in here. Those are some positives. I mean, I understand people have a problem with.
If they hired Ben Johnson from the Lions for a king's ransom and got Ben Johnson in here, I think that could be really good. And people would say, well, Mike's never had a losing season. Ben Johnson's never even been a head coach. But what was Mike's resume when they hired him? One very impressive, he is just an impressive rising young head coaching prospect who had 1 year as a defensive coordinator for the Vikings, was highly thought of during his time in Tampa, but they rolled the dice on Mike Tomlin and largely have benefited from that. But The idea that, like, you can't let him go without an equivalent or better established coach in waiting ready to take the job is a farce. When he replaced Bill Cowher, he was a gigantic question mark. He was an unknown. This idea that you have to replace him with Vince Lombardi 2.0 ready-made is kind of ridiculous.
You know, I think the biggest debate here is, and I know Art Rooney always wants to have a winner, wants to have a team that's always in the conversation. You know, is it better to have that team and always finish 15th, draft 15th to 25, or be like the Houston Texans and be awful for 3 years and look at them now? I think they are in a much better spot than the Steelers, and they were really bad for 3 years.
Would you rather have been the Texans? Just go back to even 2017, all right? Would you rather have been from 2017 through present day? Who would you rather have been? The Steelers or the Texans?
I mean, the Texans have more playoff wins, other than those 3 years where they were really bad.
Okay, but
yeah,
they have
I would
CJ
pick
Stroud
the Texans.
and
I would pick the Texans.
So would I. I think the soft middle, the 9-8, 8-9 is the worst place to be. I do think that there is, I don't want to say nobility or merit or whatever, but there's something to be said for what happens in an overwhelmingly quarterback-driven league, what going 3-14 or 4-13 gets you access to now, which is a clean shot at one of the best quarterback prospects in any given draft. The Steelers tried to get one at 20 in a historically weak class for the position, and it set them back a couple of years.
They needed a losing season to get Ben Roethlisberger. They might need a losing season to get their next future franchise quarterback. All right, we got to take a break. Back in a couple minutes.